Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. I guess what it needs to be is just a snapshot of someone's thoughts at the time and how they see it. Because we all see the world, and some of us view the world a bit differently, and we'll like take a photo because the light's different or it's a cool moment to capture. I might, to be honest, I used to not really respect photography that much as an art form, but then I ended up working at a English language summer camp in Poland, and they messed me up and put me in like the photography group. And I learned a lot about photography from the photographers there. They really just blew my mind how much thought goes into taking a good photo. And then just seeing the difference between the newbies, like the 15-year-olds running around trying to take photos, and the photography instructors. And then just, yeah, it was cool at the end of the day how the newbies of photography would almost view the world differently at the end of their photography sessions. And I guess same with me, because I never really bothered to notice cool light and just, I don't know, like cool moments in our day-to-day life. And now I'll just walk down the street. I mean, I'm not a photographer. I won't take a picture of it, but I'll notice something looks really interesting. And I'll just think that would have been a cool photograph. And then before that camp, I don't know, I just didn't really notice things as much.
Evan Hutcheon, right? Evan Hutcheon?
Yeah, perfect. Oh, you got it. Everyone throws like an S in there and says Hutchinson. Nailed it.
Oh, good. I was worried that I totally butchered your name. But Hutcheon, what kind of name is that?
It's Scottish, so I'm like an undercover Polak. My mom's Polish and my dad's Canadian.
Right.
Well, I mean, like by Canadian, like my dad's family came from the UK. But yeah, the name's Scottish. Well, I'm lucky because a lot of my Polish friends have like the generic Polish last name that has like 40 consonants and 2 vowels. So at least my last name you can pronounce. But then when I go to Poland, like no one can really pronounce my last name. They say like Huchen-sen.
Okay, well, thanks for joining me on the podcast, and thanks for agreeing to come here. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you and sharing what you do. And I love the fact that we're going to talk. So my role right now is to essentially celebrate all that is your greatness.
Sounds good.
Ready to jump into your photos?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, the first photo. Okay, this one, so it's a photo of you sitting on like a galvanized step of sort, galvanized steel step or zinc or whatever. You're wearing a blue gurney of sorts. You have a wrist tag or something. It almost looks like an MRI because it's like a big donut around you, but it's not quite an MRI because the donut seems to be empty. So it looks like some kind of chamber, some kind of place that people go into, and it looks like an industrial space. And yeah, like it's quite. You're looking right at the camera. You're looking right at the photographer. You have a nice smile on your face. But yeah, so there's this kind of academic looking or studio or lab looking place around you, and it says big sort of machine. So what is this?
Oh no, you nailed it. It's a atmospheric chamber, and you were close because it does look like an MRI, sort of, because there's a donut opening.
Right. And so I mean, it's like you're looking at the photographer. So it looks like you're either mid experiment or something because it looks like you've been actually a test subject.
So this was actually after I was inside it, and then um, we had some people inside there, and they all wanted photos, and I realized that I've been working with this chamber for like 6 years and don't have a photo with it, so I went for it.
Okay, because you seem really happy, but I mean, is this after you were kind of experimenting on each other to give yourselves like decompression sickness or the bends?
Oh no, luckily it's not. um, so I just chose that photo because it summarizes the past like 6 years of my life. Um, because that is, yeah. So I'm sitting in front of like a hyper slash hypo barrack chamber, and it has two levels. The level on the top, we can do high altitude studies, so we replicate being at a high altitude by sucking air out, and that's why the machine, you could kind of see it's all steel because it has to deal with huge pressure changes. And then we've got a little pod underneath the main chamber that we can flood with water and do dive studies. And then if we want in the upper chamber, we can also pump a lot of air into it to increase the pressure, to replicate being underwater without like being underwater.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, this is essentially to replicate extreme dive situations, like we're talking bottom of the ocean style, or I mean, maybe super high altitude.
Ooh, I need to. I okay. I've got to quickly Google it now because I don't want the lady who runs the chamber. Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm on her website now. So we could do extreme pressures of 305 meters or 100,000 feet of altitude, or 30,000 meters or 1,000 feet of seawater.
Right. Okay. It's kind of funny how Canadians mix and match between imperial and metric. This is at the university, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's at SFU in Vancouver. And that was part of the reason why I came to SFU to do my PhD, because it's the only civilian research chamber in Canada, maybe even North America, because the military has a bunch. But the cool thing is that we can do both because it's either dive or altitude chamber.
Nice, nice. This is what I really love, right? So I go out there and I meet you because of, what we do for exercise. And then I find out you're doing your PhD in a really kind of esoteric topic. So what is the research question that you finally landed on?
It's a super specific question. So there's two ways you could replicate being at high altitude. You can either go inside an altitude chamber, or you can breathe like a gas mixture that has less oxygen in it, equivalent to being at high altitude. And the main difference between both of them is just the change in pressure. Where if you go in the altitude chamber, there's a change in pressure. If you breathe a low gas mixture, you can do that at sea level, no change in pressure. So I wanted to see if that change in pressure affected the brain at all. So for my study, I had people go in the altitude chamber, and I would just measure their brain for 5 minutes while they sat there, and then also for 25 minutes while they did an attention task. And I did this at sea level. I did this at sea level while they breathed the low gas mixture, and then I did it when we simulated an altitude of 13,000 feet inside the chamber. Now, the reason why this is potentially important is military pilots, and well, I guess all pilots in general, some of them take part in something called hypoxia awareness indoctrination, where we make the pilots hypoxic so that if they're ever in their airplane and there's a sudden depressurization and their instruments, for whatever reason, don't tell them, they they can feel like, oh, hey, I'm feeling kind of wonky. I like know this feeling. I'm hypoxic. I have to fix it. Now, these like hypoxia awareness courses, they're done with either form of hypoxia, either inside an altitude chamber or having them breathe a low oxygen gas mixture. And we're still not certain if they're like fully equivalent. So I just wanted to see if the change in pressure affects the brain in a noticeable way. And I guess like that's kind of the gist of like academia. When you're at the PhD level, it's so
Right, exactly. Like it's so specific and so you know, I don't know, like quite like channeled and focused. So in terms of your results, how wide and how impactful is what you noticed?
um so my results are kind of, I guess the main issue with people comparing both is some people find changes differences and others don't, and also depends on the altitude.
Did you get the results already published?
I had I recently had one paper published a week ago for the 5 minutes of them sitting there not doing anything, and I found there I didn't really see a difference between both forms of hypoxia, which kind of makes sense. Like 13,000 feet really isn't that high for altitude studies. Um,
There you go again, 13,000 feet. What's that in meters?
oh, I think it's roughly 4,000 meters. Yeah. I mean, I've done it so many times, but every time I'm still.
Okay, what? I can hear you clicking. Are you checking? Are you
Yeah.
checking? You're such an
Um,
academic. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Listen, I'm just giving you a hard time. But in basically in doing your work and in doing the studies, and then your goal really is to publish. And so, do you know if what the impact factor is on the journal that you got into?
um, I'm the wrong person to ask for that. I'm just, this study has had a lot of problems. So this was the first publication of my PhD, even though in total, I think I worked on it for like 3 or 4 years.
Look, man, don't let me give you a hard time. Respect, respect. Like the work that you're doing is a tough and lonely road in a way, and so you have all my admiration.
Yeah, like that, like everything is kind of ended near the end of my program because this study just, it took a long time to get ethics to figure everything out. It took a long time to find participants because no one really wanted to go inside the altitude chamber, and then just analyzing the data was difficult. So now, like, I'm trying to quickly publish 3 papers summing up this big experiment.
Okay, look, I put you on the spot, but okay. So, what is there's somebody who's outside of the domain? Like, what is the application, or where does this fit in terms of its? I don't know. I don't want to use the word utility, but its use within like beyond academia.
Yeah, like my research topic, it's really applicable for the military and Air Force because they do these hypoxia training sessions. And if they don't need an altitude chamber, it's a lot cheaper and safer to do. So they're really excited. Like I presented my results at a aerospace medicine and engineering conference a couple months ago, and everyone, well, not every, like a lot of people came to me afterward and were saying how cool my study is, how interesting it is, how useful it might be in the future for developing these programs. While like a year ago, I went to another conference that was just like a neuroimaging fMRI conference, and everyone ignored me. No one cared about my work, and I had a couple people just say like, "Oh, what's the point of this? Like, why did you do this?" So
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's because what you're doing is so niche.
yeah, exactly. Like my topic is just super niche, only pretty much.
Well, it's. I mean, it's always amazing to me to see how people develop and grow and where their interests take them. And I mean, you're a total weirdo, but it's like it's important work.
Yeah, thanks. No, and it was also I didn't say, but I work part time in the chamber, like testing medical equipment, and sometimes we do those hypoxia awareness courses where I'll have pilot students from BCIT, sometimes like Canadian Air Force pilots come in, and we'll make them hypoxic in the chamber. So it's been yeah, the past 6 years I've been like research in the chamber, working in the chamber, just
Yeah, you're like the crazy guy who just hangs out in a hyperbaric chamber who just plays around with people's oxygen levels.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, how about we move on to the next photo then?
Sounds good.
Okay, so for this photo, you're standing in what could be morning or could be afternoon light. I'd probably say afternoon light. You're standing in front of a kind of a stupa, temple stupa. You're standing with a red kind of fleece. You've got your backpack on. Let's see what else. There's like these gold sort of flags coming off the stupa. So like this stupa is basically kind of a Buddhist or yeah, a Buddhist temple. Let's see. There's a woman on your right wearing a red jacket, just kind of looking at you, and you're just looking right at the camera. It's a beautiful scene. It could be Thailand because there's some hills in the background. It could be I don't know, somewhere in Asia. Yeah. So it looks very nice. Like you seem very calm, relaxed. Your arms open wide. Maybe you're welcoming the world. I don't know. So what is this?
So that's me in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Oh, sweet.
I was lucky and I did a co op for 3 months in Nepal. So I rented a room from a family and it worked out perfectly because the husband and wife, both of their sons were around my age, but they were studying in the States. I think one was in the States and one was in Australia. So I kind of called them my Nepali parents. These are it's like they're Canadian son because
Sweet. Okay. Nepal, Kathmandu. So what was? I mean, what was the altitude? Was it like high up?
a bit. I forgot it was Kathmandu. Is I forgot how high it was. So like sort of altitude, not that much. But I more included that just because I had such a great time there, and I feel it was kind of the whole basis of why I. So my mom, growing up, like really loved Buddhism and Tibet in particular. So since I was really young, my mom would always just talk to me about Tibet and the East, and I really wanted to go. Obviously, like Nepal is in Tibet, and it's pretty hard to get to Tibet now with the like, Chinese government. But I found this co-op, so I went there kind of for myself and for my mom, and that was also part of the reason why I got into studying high altitude stuff because my dream has been to do a field study in the Tibetan Plateau or anywhere in the Himalayas, and just record brain activity from the high altitude natives. But that trip, I just learned a lot about myself, and it was kind of eye opening too, because just for my mom romanticizing the East, I was a bit naive coming, and I thought that everyone would.
Welcome the foreigner with big open arms.
I was just really naive, and I expected that since the East is with Buddhism and everyone being really nice, that religion would be different there. I don't know. And I went there and I realized that there are obviously some good aspects of religion and Buddhism, but I met some shady people that were kind of connected to different temples, and it kind of opened my eyes that people are the same everywhere. Like I kind of romanticized the East, thinking that they're be less crime and lying and theft, but everyone's the same everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess that's a bit of a hard earned lesson, right? Yeah, wherever you go, it's just people doing their thing. But I don't know. I mean, I've always found, mm, well, I mean, definitely in Thailand, there just seems to be an ethos, maybe linked to Buddhism, of just being kind that I don't know. I just don't feel I see as much of, in the West.
Uh, so it'll go kind of against of what I said before, but the picture I'm in front of Buddha Stupa. It was like this area of Kathmandu that had pretty much a big chunk of the Tibetan Buddhist stuff. And on all of my days off, I would just kind of go there and hang out and sit in the temples. And I found it really relaxing and nice. And I'm like, well, I go between atheist and agnostic. I'm not sure what I really am, but I'm not that religious. But I was drawn to that area and just the calmness in those temples, just sitting there. I think one day I spent 6 hours sitting in a temple just observing everything that was going on. Like,
Wait, wow. Okay, so 6 hours. Yeah, everybody's kind of looking at the foreigner just sitting there, kind of. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just yeah. You had. I can totally understand you finding a kind of sense of peace just hanging out. So what was the experience? I mean, it was a co-op. What were you doing?
for roughly 3 months, I worked at the Nepal Health Research Council, where what they did was if anyone wanted to do a study in Nepal, you had to send your study application to the center and they would approve it or not. I had to digitize like 5 years of folders. So they had like an Excel document and I just inputted, which I was a little bit salty about it. But then I realized that my Nepali coworkers were great. I don't want to make them sound kind of incompetent because they weren't, but I'm just a native English speaker. So it was a lot easier for me to scan the documents and find the relative information and input it in an Excel chart. So I I worked a lot faster, got a lot more stuff done. So I really helped them with that. And then through that, I managed to make a connection and I shadowed a neurosurgeon for a week. And I saw like some brain surgeries, which were really cool. And then again,
What? You got the shadows of a neurosurgeon. Oh, well, look, this isn't something you can just do any day. I mean, that sounds astounding.
yeah, it just blew my mind because in Canada that would never happen. Kind of nonchalant, find some connections, and just ask like, "Hey, can I follow you for a week and go to the OR with you?" Then he's just like, "Yeah, sure."
That is totally wild. I mean, what an incredible experience. What an amazing thing to be able to participate in. How amazing. Okay, well, since basically the way we met is through doing physical exercise like BJJ, so I mean, what kind of exercise were you doing while you're out there?
Oh, I wasn't doing anything. I was bad.
What a slacker! Well, then again, I'm sure it must have been quite challenging to actually find a good outlet.
Yeah, the downside was I found the air pollution was really, really bad there. So even just walking around, I was dead. Like for the first week, I tried to do like jumping jacks and sit ups and push ups, but I found I would just die pretty quickly.
Right. Okay, I know this photo. Yeah, I know the place. I was there. I was standing behind or next to the photographer. So in the photograph, we have the crew from New West around while you're upgrading or being given your black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's downstairs. I mean, this is an amazing sort of person's basement who converted it into a home sort of dojo. But yeah, so there you are. You're holding onto your brown belt, and he's sort of unfurling this brand new crisp black belt, and everybody's clapping, everybody's happy for you, and you're being given your black belt. So yeah, man, that was quite the achievement. So tell us more.
Yeah, I chose that photo because it I started training jujitsu when I was 13 or 14. I don't remember exactly. It's between 13 and 15 around then. And then I've managed just to like stick with it for the past like 15, 16 years. So unfortunately I've taken some breaks in training, and I think consistently I've trained maybe like 11 years. But it just, I don't know, it showed persistence because I've never, jujitsu never came easily for me. Like even now, learning new techniques, I feel takes me twice as long as everyone else. Like I was never the most talented at it. Like, but I don't know. I just stuck with it, and I had a lot of friends who I trained with who just would stop training over time and then get back into it.
No, but it's still amazing. I mean, like to reach that ability and that kind of level in BJJ. I mean, it shows. I mean, it's quite an achievement.
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of myself for getting my black belt with it. And
Well, it's a really long, hard road, and there's it's one of mostly a failure for the first part. For the first year or two, it's just sucking for a long time, which is of course very humbling. And like, how was your progression up the belts? Were they quick? Were they slow? Like, how was that?
I think it took me maybe 2 years. Oh, brown belt. I think that was 2 years also, but I stayed at the blue belt level for a really long time. I think I was a blue belt for 5 or 7 years.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it's not like it's so unusual because I've met a lot of people who have taken, who are stuck at one kind of belt level, blue or purple or whatever, for years and years, and that's just the length of their journey, I guess. Yeah, it's still. I mean, it's still astounding because to get to that level is like just so much work, and there are no shortcuts really.
I've still got pretty bad imposter syndrome. I don't know. To be honest, I still feel more like a brown belt, and with the black belt, I feel there is a bit more of a target on your back and a bit more stress. And I got, well, I'm pretty new black belt, so it'll be cool to see the progression in like a year. But I got it in September, and then for the first couple of months, I was proud of myself, but I also like hated it because there's this whole new level of like responsibility, and it was just terrifying, and I like didn't feel ready. I felt like I conned everyone into like thinking I deserve, like it was pretty bad. And now I've loosened up a bit. I've put the time in. I've been training hard. I deserve it. And I've also, the first couple of months when I got my black belt, I changed the way I rolled. I was a lot more defensive, and I wouldn't really take risks just because I was terrified of like being potentially submitted as a black belt. But the last 2 months, I've loosened up a lot more and just start trading like I did before, taking more risks when I roll. And if I get submitted by someone, then good for them. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, from if you're a spar, you have good days, you have bad days. And sometimes somebody who you think was going to be a pushover ends up teaching you a hard lesson. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. For somebody who doesn't do any of this stuff, they're probably like, yeah, yeah, big deal. Who cares? But it's a very, I mean, it reveals a lot about who you are and what you're made out of and all this stuff. And it doesn't have to be BJJ. It could also be Muay Thai or any other kind of sparring. And really, as far as the imposter syndrome is concerned, I mean, at the end, you're always going to be you. Like your level will change, and the belt is just an idea, and it's a flag or a signal. But it's you can't hide in a way. Like there must have been times when you're rolling with somebody who's above your belt or whatever, and you just demolish or cream them out, just kick their asses.
No, no, like I wouldn't go so far to say as like cream them, but I've definitely had like yeah good rolls with black belts at the end of the day. And yeah, with the psyche, it is weird because now I feel almost more comfortable rolling with black belts just because of the belt. It's another black belt. I'm the most afraid now rolling with brown belts, and especially like because it's that transition stage, and there are some brown belts that are just killers, and like I've been submitted by brown belts before, and yeah, like they got me, but it's still I need to work on my ego bit because it's kind of scary going against a brown belt and thinking like, oh man, they shouldn't be able to tap me, and if they might, it'll make me look bad, and you could get in like a bad headspace. With I'm working on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing how much ego is a pitfall, and it just yeah, how do you have the self management to just avoid falling into that trap, right? Because yeah, you're always gonna fall into that ego pit. I mean, have you had the chance to train in other cities? Like, because I found Vancouver to be a particular kind of strange monster. But like, have you trained elsewhere?
uh no, no, I've only trained in Vancouver.
Yeah, because I think mentioned this before, but something about Vancouver is really peculiar to me, and I can't put my finger on why it's so egotistical. Really, I mean, there's a lot of ego in the gyms. Um, just from my experience, sorry, Vancouver. I don't know what it is. Is it because of I mentioned this before. Like, is it the film industry that makes people really kind of combative or not combative, but like essentially like it's like a zero sum game of the only way that you can find work is if you beat everybody else, and it's basically kind of superficial or whatever it is. Like I don't know what it is or why it is, but I've found the attitude in the gyms to be really peculiar.
Huh, yeah, that's a really interesting. Like I'll have to train in other cities and see, because you're right. It's like our US club definitely wasn't like that. It's more if I go to other clubs for open mats where I don't really know people, and yeah, I'm curious if no, now just really I want to train elsewhere now and see how it is. I need to.
Yeah, well, look, I'm only comparing this really to the experiences I've had doing Muay Thai in well around basically around the world, different places, and especially in Thailand, right, where there's this idea that you train super hard, like you go 120%, but it's like if you're not laughing and smiling while you're training, you're probably not getting the best out of your workout. So it's a very kind of lighthearted spirit, which isn't at all what I experienced in Vancouver, at least.
Oh, that's super interesting because I don't know much about Thai kickboxing, and I never knew that whole ethos of training while you're smiling, and I really like that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, one thing we also have to kind of, I want to, I think it comes up a lot, especially around COVID, was this idea of the kind of the social dimension of training was tough with people on lockdown. And yeah, like this, that really impacted, I think, on the mental health side and everything. So what was, like, how did you respond to all that?
Um, COVID was super lonely and sucked to kind of summarize it. But that was, yeah, I was kind of bad during COVID because our lab shut down and we're all working from home and everything kind of just fell apart a bit. And I had a tough time with that. And I spoke to two of my lab mates, and the three of us, like including me, would all meet up at the lab a couple times a week and kind of sneak in and just do work together, which it was against COVID quarantine procedures. But I like if I didn't do that, I would have had a very, very tough time. And then just yeah, not being able to train jujitsu sucked and kind of showed me how much I like jujitsu.
Yeah, yeah. You just basically enjoy rolling. But look, there's something really fundamental, and we don't, guys don't often roll around with each other in outside of judo and jujitsu and that kind of stuff. But here's a question for you. What is grosser? Because we're so close to each other. We're sweaty. You're really, really on top of each other and everything. And so, what is grosser? Is it to have that bead of sweat from your opponent fall off their forehead or whatever and land in your mouth or land in your eye? Like, what's grosser?
Oh, um, ew. I guess to the mouth because when I roll, I wear contacts, so at least I have that little like contact shield. Oh, but that could go the other way if the sweat gets like stuck underneath the contact, and then it just uh
Yeah, because for people who don't normally do this kind of thing, I mean, it's just gross, really, right? Because I mean, you're so in each other's businesses, business like your face to face, head to head, chest to chest, butt to face, but it's quite intimate. Like what do you? It's a funny switch that we turn off, right? That outside of the mats, uh, we we live separate kind of bubbled life or whatever, and then but then when you get on the mat, it's like you're super close, super in there.
I've actually I don't have a good answer for that, but I've thought about that for a long time because I've got a really huge personal bubble. I'm that weird person who doesn't like to be touched. I don't like to give hugs or get hugs. Like I've got a bit better now with that, but I've always been that. And then I started training hub keto, and then around like 13, 14, my dad got me in jujitsu. And for some reason, just that intimacy of jujitsu like never bothered me. While like if I'm talking to someone and they take a step too close and I'm very, very aware that they're in my space and I don't like it, or even if a waitress at a restaurant will like touch my shoulder while asking for my bill, like I don't like that at all. But jujitsu is okay for whatever reason. Like
Yeah, it's like excuse me while I rub my butt right in your face.
yeah.
Okay, so for this photo, it's full on. It's really great. Okay, so it's basically, I assume it's you on a bicycle, and I mean, the photo's fantastic. So you're in a kind of what looks like a skate park slash bike park, with all the kind of the jumps and everything. It's all concrete with the lips and the rolls and everything. And you're on a kind of it looks like a trials bike or a small mountain bike, basically. And it looks like you have like some serious air, and you're wearing a black helmet. It's a beautiful sunny day. You're in a red t-shirt. You're facing away from the camera. You're really like you're high up in the air. You're flying high. On this bike. You're really. I mean, it's really impressive jump, and I mean, potentially landing in a bad way. So I mean, did you land that jump?
I landed that jump. I mean, I've crashed a lot doing that same jump too, but that one I landed it.
Yeah, because I mean, that's really impressive. I mean, that's one of the amazing things about BC, right? Everybody's outside, and there's so much good mountain biking and all this stuff. So I've always known Vancouver to be a really biking city, and so yeah, like that's an incredible shot.
I know we talked about how much I love jujitsu, and I do, but my like one real love just for like exercise is biking. Like,
What? Oh, there's a whole side of you I didn't even know about. I mean does your other lover know about your biking fetish or no obsession? No, not even obsession. I guess it's love, true love.
no, yeah, like I love mountain biking. So you're actually really close to describing my bike. It's a good way to say it's like a children's dirt jump bike. So BMX bikes have 20-inch wheels, and most mountain bikes are 26-inch wheels. For like some time in the late 2000s, 24-inch wheels became really popular. And that's what my bike is. So it's in between like a normal dirt jump bike and a BMX. And then I also took the brakes off because BMXers do that at skate park and I wanted to be cool with them. But yeah, just like a smaller dirt jump bike. I use it. I started biking when I was like 11 or 12. And that was another one where I fall a lot biking. Like I was never naturally like really good at biking. I just stuck with it and forced myself to be like all right at it. However, like the downside though is you fall and you get hurt a lot. And I'm 30 now. So unfortunately, I haven't really ridden my bike this past year because I don't want to deal with injuries.
Yeah, well, of course, it's like obviously falling hurts and you don't recover as quickly. But I don't know, like avoidance, is that the answer? It's like to a certain extent, at a certain point, you just kind of have to accept that things are going to suck and it's going to hurt. And I guess as you get older, you kind of want to learn how to avoid the really big crashes. But maybe the key is just to avoid the concrete park and just stick to the soft, loamy trails of British Columbia.
I mean, I rode trails for a bit too, and I ride dirt jumps a bit, and it still hurts if you fall like on the ground. And with trails, you usually go a lot faster, so that can also suck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously falling. Okay, so like, look, can you has biking influence your BJJ? And because in BJJ where you're always falling, or not always, but there's a lot of falling. So did that give your body a kind of falling IQ?
Actually, it's almost the other way a bit, where my biking just gave me pretty good balance, which helped a lot with jujitsu. And then I found when I used to train Hapkido, which was right before I started to bike, we did a lot of break falls and just learning how to fall. And that really helped me with biking. Like, I would love to say jujitsu did, but unfortunately, I started training jujitsu after I started biking. So it did kind of help me a bit with learning how to fall, but I kind of knew that before.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but how much riding did you do this summer? Did you get out a lot?
Did I ride it all this summer? Maybe like 6 months ago. Because the other part was I started training and taking jujitsu a bit more seriously the last couple of years. And like you said, if I fall on concrete, I usually get road rash. And then like I can't train jujitsu for like a month because I've got this huge scab on my leg. And then yeah, again, I just realized I would get way too hurt biking, and then I couldn't train jujitsu. It would kind of affect school sometimes.
Okay. Well, if cycling really is your big thing, I mean, you only have one bike. I mean, I assume you've got a whole whack of bikes.
Um, I've only really got one bike, so I'm a pretty broke student. I wish I had more. But no, I've got my one bike that's fully functional, and then I've got another bike that's like missing some pieces. That's more of a parts bike,
Okay, okay. Is this a fully suspension bike or is it just front suspension?
just on the front.
Got it, got it. Okay, well, I mean, like, how committed are you? Like,
You're explaining before the future I'm jumping out of is called like a bowl, and I could go in like a bowl and ride it all day and have so much fun because I've gotten to the point where I don't have to pedal where I'm in there. I can just like push down and just pump corners so I can maintain my speed throughout there, and it almost feels like snowboarding a bit, but on concrete. Like,
genius, snowboarding and jujitsu. Put them together. What a great idea for a sport.
even though this season I haven't gone snowboarding at all because there's not that much snow and it's expensive again.
Oh, you poor thing. I mean, like living in Vancouver and having all this amazing potential to go outside, even entertaining the idea of doing jujitsu and snowboarding at the same time. Oh, you poor thing. So I mean, what was it like for you growing up? Like, obviously, you must have had a pretty active sort of childhood and whatever that you could sort of focus on these things.
But when I was a kid, my dad used to always say dignity of risk, and he would kind of goad my brother and I to like climb a tree or something, just say, oh, like dignity of risk. And then I've always liked kind of riskier activities, I guess. And as a kid, I loved reading stories of all the great explorers of the past ages, like Shackleton. And now, like, I don't know, I always thought I'd be like an explorer, but that didn't happen. But I feel like my PhD project had a lot more risk than normal projects because I'm taking oxygen away from people. Like BMXing, mountain biking has risks because I might fall. I don't know. I guess it's just I like challenging myself with something where there's might be just a threat of consequences, I guess.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. And it's it's funny you should say that. And because we're talking jujitsu, just last week I had Scott Butcher on the podcast,
Yeah.
and speaking of risks and consequences, like he was talking about introducing the idea of smothering. Smother, like stopping people's ability to breathe during a roll. I mean, that's pretty full on.
Oh, I like that call. Like I've never smothered anyone, I don't think. I have been smothered before, like rolling with guys who are just a lot bigger than me and just kind of laying on me. Like it's scary. I It hasn't happened in a long time, but I just remember feeling like the panic because it would come on a bit slower than like a blood choke. And I remember I would just be sitting there, like it was just scarier because you're sitting there panicking. You can't really get out, but you're also like not close to being choked out. So I wouldn't tap because the threat wasn't there yet.
Well, what a delightful concept and what a delightful conversation. Oh, okay. Like, thank you. Thank you. This has been really fun. I knew it was going to be interesting. And, I just really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. No, I had a good time too. I was a little bit nervous before. I don't know why, but
Nervous? I mean, nervous? It's just me. Okay. Well, okay. No problem. It just is what it is. Yeah. I think if you can, why don't you get on your bike? Hopefully, it's sunny out in rainy Vancouver. So what's it like right now?
yeah, it was actually sunny today. I was looking out at the concrete and I'm like, oh, the concrete's dry. Like I could take my bike to ride some street, find a stair set somewhere. But no, I need to do that. I miss it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'll give you a nice, it's a bit of Jewish guilt, just to kind of give you a bit of leave you with a good complex at the end of the episode. But Evan, seriously, thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, and you too. I had a lot of fun.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.